edition of the Field of 68 After Dark. So grab that tall boy and join us over the next hour for some college hoops talk. I'm John Fanta. We've got Ashton Gibbs with us tonight. We've got Rob Dauster with us tonight. And coming up on the show, we will talk Big Ten hoops. We'll lead off with Purdue in a moment. We'll get into Illinois. Rob has some observations about the Fighting Illini, big picture. Plus, what happens with Maryland going forward? Who are the top names that they could pursue in their search as Mark Turgeon parts ways with the Terrapins earlier today? And we will talk about Kansas's blowout win over St. John's. But let's begin with Jaden Ivey leading the way. Travion Williams already with a double-double. And Purdue, Rob Dauster, will stay perfect, barring a miracle comeback. The Boilermakers have commanded a Keegan Murray-less Iowa Hawkeyes team tonight.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest question that remains right now is whether or not they're going to cover the 12.5 that Bet Rivers had at tip-off. I'll tell you what I did, Fanta. I pulled a move straight out of your book, okay? I get the tweet, right? I get the tweet from Andy Katz, who says, breaking news right now from Mackey Arena. This was like probably about 75 minutes before tip-off. Breaking news from Mackey Arena. Keegan Murray is not warming up. Keegan Murray averages 25 points a game. Keegan Murray is Iowa's best player. I already thought that this was a bad matchup for Iowa. Now their best player is not playing. The guy that's putting up Luka Garza numbers. So you know what I do, Fanta? I rush to my Bet Rivers app as quick as I possibly can, and I put in a bet. I double what I had on it. So what we really need right now is a Purdue cover. That 3 right there is going to help. Go ahead.
Ashton, what do you think it is that makes Purdue a team that can win the national championship?
Well, you talk about a deadly combo, not only on the perimeter, but underneath as well with Travion Williams and Zach Edey. I think those guys, along with Jaden Ivey, I mean, he's probably the best playmaker in college basketball right now. This guy, his first step is really quick. He can create a play whenever he wants. And that's what you need moving forward, especially deep into the NCAA tournament. You want guys that can create for themselves and create for others at will.
Here's one thing I think about with Purdue. I keep hearing people say, well, Gonzaga and Duke, by virtue of being younger, they have a higher amount of potential. Like Purdue's touching that right now. They're touching their ceiling, and that's a very good one. They're going to make the Final Four, but people keep bringing up the fact that they think Gonzaga and Duke can reach a higher height. Here's the fact of the matter. I disagree with that take because I don't sit here and say Purdue is peaking too early, or Purdue has multiple ways that they can beat you. They have 2 trees on the interior. We've talked about that. But what I love about this Purdue team is that on any given night, they have a guy who can hit 4 threes for them, who could even hit 5 3-pointers for them. When they're hitting perimeter shots, the game is over. You're not beating them. And they don't rely on 1 or 2 guys to get that done for them. So they have the mix of veteran shooting. They have the mix of 2 big guys who have a different variable to their games. And they have an NBA draft lottery pick, Rob. I don't like the take that the Purdue Boilermakers, have there's not a higher ceiling that they can expand upon as the season goes on. I disagree with that idea. And I think Matt Painter would say, we got to still get better defensively. We have things that we still can work on. Yeah,
I mean, that's where it is, right? So are they going to be able to guard the way that you need to be able to guard to win a national title and to make it to a Final Four? I'm a little bit concerned. We've seen a lot of turnovers tonight, right? They have 14 turnovers, which is not ideal when you're going up against a team like Iowa, who's not known for their defense. Like, this is not a team that people will sit there and say, yes, they're going to force turnovers. Yes, they're going to make you have a hard time running offense. Yes, they're going to make Travion Williams throw the ball out of bounds 4 or 5 times in this game. So there's certainly ways that they can improve. But I'll also tell you this, and Ashton, I'm curious your take on this. I don't think they need to improve to win a national title. I think that they're good enough right now to go out and win a national title. It's twofold, right? It's the fact that they have multiple ways to beat you. But the bigger thing is that all of these guys all buy into this idea. I think Travion Williams, and I've made this point over and over and over again, I think he's the best teammate in college basketball, the single best teammate. This is a guy that was preseason All Big Ten. This was a guy that got votes as a preseason All-American. And he's out here right now coming off the bench, and he's fine with it. He's the biggest cheerleader they have. He's the loudest voice on that bench whenever he is on the bench. He's the loudest presence on that court whenever he is on the court. And when your senior is sacrificed in the year it's supposed to be his year, that's just there's nothing that can match that, right? There's just nothing possible that can kind of match that impact that has on a roster. So I'm all in on the Boilermakers. I said this, Vince, you can attest to this. I told you and T.O. on our podcast that I thought Purdue was the best team in the country before Duke and Gonzaga played. So I'm in on the Boilers. I love this group.
I actually agree with you, Rob. This group, I think the biggest thing that really helps them is just the pedigree of Matt Painter. He's been through it. He just built a culture there at Purdue. And you could tell guys like Travion Williams, like you said, have bought into it. So they play selfless. They really gap up defensively. They play really hard. And then, like you said, they have a dynamic scorer who can score at will. And you need that going into conference play and if you're going to make a run ultimately in the NCAA tournament.
I'll tell you this about Jaden Ivey. He is the most entertaining basketball player to watch in transition of anybody that I can remember. I can't remember anyone that is like him when he gets the ball in his hands in transition. He's a blur, man. Like we were talking about it earlier, Ashton. Like it's like 3 dribbles from the opposite foul line and he's taking a layup. It's insane.
He's almost as college basketball as Jay Morant in terms of how fast he can get down the court. And just make plays not only for himself, but for others as well. He can shoot the ball. And then he just brings an energy. He brings a toughness to their team. He brings a confidence and a swagger to their team that I think, really separates them from, other teams around the country.
Yeah, you know what I think it is? Purdue gets so much of so many of their shots and so many of their points directly out of the offense that Matt Painter wants to run. Right, it's directly out of their sets. It's all right. We're gonna have this dribble handoff leading to this double down screen, leading to this guy running off of a triple screen on the baseline, and we're gonna try to get our threes here. We're gonna run this so we can get a seal and a lob for Zach Edey in this spot, or Travion Williams is gonna post up here and try to look for this kick out. Right, so much of it is designed out of what they do. There are teams that can take you out of what you want to do offensively if you play defense a certain kind of way. Right. And the teams that do that, whether it's like Duke does it, Florida State does it, it's switching, it's the overplaying the passing lanes. When that happens, you need guys that can just go out and win a one-on-one matchup, right? Jaden Ivey is that guy. And they got other, like Zach Edey could throw the ball to the post. If he's sealed deep enough, just give him the rock in the post. He's going to make a move. Travion Williams, same thing. But Jaden Ivey he's that difference maker, I think. There's not very many teams that have a guy that can do the things that he can do. And by the way, it's down to 7. This is not good. This is not good.
Hey, you know what? Let's put some respect on Fran McCaffrey's name for a moment, because what he's done with this Iowa group, Iowa was an afterthought heading into this season, as was Iowa State. They're going to meet on Thursday night next week. That is now a big-time matchup. Always is, but I think now national recognition, there's going to be more of it than we expected. I give Fran a lot of credit. I never question his coaching, but I question the personnel heading into this season. And he's just found a way, the way that they run offense. And then I actually think that this team's defended better than I would have thought. So as you said, it's down to 7. Here's one thing I want to bring up, though, Ashton, because you alluded to it, and I want to get a former player's perspective here. You said that Travion Williams, the level of sacrifice, being a teammate, the buy-in, the fact there, and you said it's a result of Matt Painter. But take us inside a locker room. I'm sure you've been in a locker room in great moments, and I'm sure you've been in a locker room and maybe a teammate and another teammate are at odds. What does it take for those 15 guys to collectively be like, I don't care what my role is, we care about a W?
I think it comes down to accountability. I think the best teams are the player-driven teams that hold themselves accountable. And then you add in a big-time coach, i.e. Matt Painter. And, he's been through it. He's been through the ringer, X and O guru. He can really gap up. He knows how to play defense. His teams are really tough. They make good decisions. So Ultimately, it comes down to being player driven, holding, each other accountable. One thing that we did when I was at Pitt is we really spent time together off the court. And I think that only helps with the chemistry when you get on the court.
Yeah, you got to be able to bond. You got to be able to get along through that grind. And I think that this team does, by the way. It's a 5-point game here with less than 4 to go. And you take a look at what Iowa's been able to do. I mean, Patrick McCaffrey's been very good in this game. And they've actually had a nice night from Tony Perkins, 5 of 10 from the field. He's played pretty well. You get a couple of contributions off the bench. And Chris Murray with 9 points. This is all without Keegan Murray. I guess, Rob Dauster, let's talk briefly here for a moment. The Hawkeyes, compared to what you thought they'd be heading into this season to what you're seeing here tonight, what should people feel like at Carver Hawkeye Arena this season?
I mean, I would feel really good about this group. I think that their defensive performance today has been really impressive. I thought that Purdue was going to run away with this thing. I didn't think that they'd be able to hang in it. They've been forcing turnovers. There have been 2 or 3 times where it felt like Purdue hit them with a knockout punch, and they came fighting back.
Yeah.
The one thing about this group, like, they don't have any size inside, but there's more length and athleticism up and down this roster than any Fran McCaffrey team that I can remember since he got to Iowa. Keegan Murray's not out there, but that dude's a freak, right? His brother Chris, really long and athletic. Joe Toussaint he brings something different offensively than I think most Purdue teams are expected to have. Patrick McCaffrey, he's long and athletic and lanky as well. Tony Perkins, the kid that you were just talking about, I thought he was really, really impressive in the first half. Some of the plays that he was making defensively, the pressures that he was providing, they've been really, really good and really impressive. They just forced another 10-second call right here. The fight that they're showing on the defensive end of the floor is something that we haven't seen out of this Iowa basketball program in a long time. And if they can do that, they got dudes that can score and they got dudes that can put up points.
Well,
they get enough stops.
So my tweet, I quoted you and said, I think Purdue is good enough right now to win a national title. Jerry Palm has quote tweeted it with "not tonight."
He's not wrong. He's not wrong.
Is this down to what is this down to right now?
70. Purdue's up 70-65 with 3 minutes and 12 seconds left. I'm not that worried. The cover's probably out of the question, which,
So what? Jerry Palm? Did Jerry Palm just put you into a bag?
Yeah, I think he did.
That's okay. I'm inside a hot dog costume based on what happened today.
Yeah, you are. Ashton, I don't know if you know about that. We bet on whether or not Maryland would ever be ranked in the top 13 this season, and it's down to 2, by the way. And John Fanta said that he thought Maryland would be ranked in the top 13 in college basketball this year. That's not going to happen, obviously. The loser had to wear a hot dog costume on a show. So
really,
yeah, we're going to try to hedge it. So we're going to figure out a way to sort of.
There's no hedging. It's not going to get hedged.
What if, what if I don't know. What if I outline
based off of what's happening with this Purdue game right now? I might allow you to buy your way out of it. That might be.
Hold on. Wait. What if I play you 1-on-1 to start Final Four week in New Orleans? Dan Mahalik will line it up, and we play 1-on-1. See who wins.
I like that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we can.
Wait. Ashton, with Goodman officiating.
Wow.
No.
Not only do it.
See, that's like Stone Cold to Vince McMahon versus Undertaker or something.
No. Yeah. No. It's not gonna. It'd be a completely fraudulent competition.
Okay. Let's move on here. We're at 11:14. We'll see what happens here at the end of Iowa-Purdue. Let's stay in the Big Ten. Illinois beats down Rutgers. Now, I look at this result, and I'm not surprised at all, but a reminder, Illinois shorthanded. Andre Curbelo still out. But through an injury, are we seeing an emergence? Rob, what's going on with Illinois that you think they need to do going forward?
So the thing that I was really impressed with is the way that Alfonso Plummer's been playing. He's averaging 24 over his last 4 games. He's really starting to shoot the ball well. And I think moving him into the starting lineup has been a real difference maker for him. He's the guy that can really help space the floor, right? Like all he does is shoot. That's what he's on the court to do, is to make jump shots. And his ability to space the floor just gets people off of Kofi Cockburn. And my take has been that you want Trent Frazier on the ball being the guy that kind of is the lead guard, the star guard for that team, because I think that he is so much more of a threat offensively coming off of those ball screens than Andre Curbelo is at this point in the season. And what happens is, I mean, we talked about this. They become so easy to guard when Andre Curbelo's out there, because you play drop. You don't let Kofi Cockburn get anything on the roll. You dare Andre Curbelo to beat you, and it has not worked out well for them. You can't do that with Trent Frazier. You know, he's not the passer that Curbelo is, but he's going to make shots. He's going to hit that little 12-foot pull up. He's got the float game in his package. He's able to make plays off of the bounce and off of ball screens. I think that having Trent Frazier be that guy, be the main guy, play Alfonso Plummer as a starter, and then whenever Curbelo comes back, bring him off the bench. I think that's the best case scenario moving forward for Illinois. But I'll tell you what, fans, I said something and got some pushback from Illinois fans on one of these shows previously. I said I don't know how it's fixable. That's your answer right there, is to not use Andre Curbelo in that role that he was playing. Turn the keys over to Trent Frazier, your fifth year senior. Let him figure things out.
So here's the thing about this. Trent Frazier went 2 for 10 from the field tonight. 2 for 10. Andre Curbelo still out for the Fighting Illini. And the final score of this game was Illinois 86, Rutgers 51. Illinois 86, Rutgers 51. I do want to take a moment here. Steve Peichel told us before the season on this very network that he believed that his Rutgers team would be the best that he's had. And that was saying something, because the Scarlet Knights came a play away, quite literally, from a Sweet 16 last year against a Houston team that ends up making the Final Four. Rutgers thus far has been the biggest disappointment in college basketball. And I know that a lot of people would say they don't talk about Rutgers basketball because they're not a sexy brand name. But folks, this team returned Geo Baker and Ron Harper. I do not care that Geo Baker was out of this game tonight. You lost by 35. You lost by 35. You've lost to Lafayette. You lost to UMass. Rutgers, you got to be better right now. There was a higher expectation level than this. And I know Steve Peichel right now has to be very disappointed in what he has seen from his team, because this is not what the expectation level was in Piscataway. It was not. And I will say that right now about the Scarlet Knights, that they are a big disappointment thus far.
Yeah, I don't know if I would call them the biggest disappointment in college basketball, because Michigan exists and Oregon exists. But I thought they were going to be better. I mean, we had them in our top 50, and like that looks like a laughable mistake, you know? So
Lafayette.
Yeah, Oregon was a top 10 team, and they scored 49 points at home against BYU. Michigan is 4-3 on the season. Like those teams are supposed to be a lot better than Rutgers. There's hey, Ashton, tell me if I'm wrong here. You're a New Jersey guy. Is anybody surprised that Rutgers is losing to Lafayette?
Yeah, Rutgers shouldn't be losing to Lafayette. I think their issue is just getting adjusted to new roles. Like the loss of Miles Johnson is a huge loss. Montez Mathis, I think just overall, like some of those guys, they kind of brought a toughness to them last year, gave them an identity. And I think Miles did a really good job on both ends, changing shots on the defensive end. And then he really came into his own around the basket offensively last year. So that was a huge loss. And guys like Ron Harper are trying to figure it out and trying to be more consistent, with now defenses really, gapped up and really scouting him to really take him away.
All right, Ashton, I got to tee you up here right now. Who's the second best team in the Big Ten Conference?
Second best in the Big Ten. So it's tough. So you got Purdue. I like Ohio State. I'm an Ohio State guy.
Okay, well, look, they beat the number one team in the land. Tell us why.
Yeah. So I'm a EJ Liddell. I just think his toughness and around the basket, and they're starting to make shots on the perimeter, and I think that's just going to be the difference ultimately, because around the basket, I don't think anybody can really deal with EJ Liddell. So I really like Ohio State right now.
I'm still on, like, I'm back on Illinois. I think I'm higher on Michigan State now than a lot of people are. I think Tyson Walker's kind of coming into his own a little bit as a passer or decision maker. And I think that using him and AJ Hoggard together works well. And Gabe Brown, he's hitting jump shots now. Marcus Bingham, get that. This is over. This cover's dead. Marcus Bingham is starting to block some shots and make some plays in the post. I think Malik Hall is kind of like the X factor on this group. So I'm a believer in Michigan State. You know who we haven't really talked about much on this show, but that deserves to kind of be in that conversation? Who is the second best team in the Big Ten? Wisconsin. They're good.
They're good.
Really good.
Johnny Davis has really grown. Brad Davison's in his 10th season of college basketball. I like TJ Wall. Look, defense is a constant with Greg Gard's program. I still like, but here's the thing. Like a lot of the Big Ten, at times I worry about perimeter shooting, but it doesn't seem to matter with the level of defense and rebounding in that league. Wisconsin should be considered, and the Kohl Center is a place where they win over 80% of the games that they play in. So, look, they're a team that's a candidate there. I agree with you about Michigan State. Watching them on the opening night of the season against Kansas live, I watched them, and I said to you guys a couple of times on press row, what is Michigan State doing in the half-court offense? Like, what's going on with their guard play? But 10 assists for Tyson Walker against Louisville. I love to see that. So Tyson Walker is a playmaker. Michigan State doesn't need a point guard who can score the ball. Michigan State needs a point guard who makes the others around him better, because Michigan State has those players. When Malik Hall and when Gabe Brown and the size with Bingham and Marble, like Michigan State has the size. They defend, they rebound. They need a playmaking guard to lead them. And I'm buying Tyson Walker as the season goes on. I think we saw against Louisville the kind of creator he can lead them. I'm buying Tyson Walker as coming off that opening night loss. I think sort of being shoved down the kind of creator to lead them. Basically, you're thinking Michigan State's very average. I love Izzo in that spot because I think that they do have above average talent that hasn't fully translated because you haven't had the guard to set the table. Walker's the answer to those questions. I am buying the Spartans as a top 3 team in the Big Ten this season.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm with you 100%.
Yes.
I still think Illinois is probably the second best. I'll tell you what, with Michigan, I don't see it. I don't think that they're coming back from this. I don't think that.
What do you mean by that? So like 8-9 game?
Yeah, I think that they're probably like more in like the 6-7 range than they are like the 2-3 range this season. They just don't have the creativity. Like the thing about them last year, they had 2 or 3 guys on their perimeter that were able to make plays off the bounce, to knock down threes, that were switchable defensively, that were old, that were tough, that were physical. Isaiah Liver, Shawnee Brown, Franz Wagner. Mike Smith was a guy that can make a play and score. They don't have that. Caleb Houston's a guy that's supposed to be out there shooting. He really hasn't made shots. Moussa Diabate, I think, kind of overlaps a little bit too much with what Hunter Dickinson wants to do and where he's effective. Devontae Jones and Eli Brooks you're relying on them to be kind of the shot creation and the guys that break defenses down and kind of are that first action to kind of get you into drive, kick, draw, help, kick it out. Then you got to close out, right? They're not the guys that are kind of built for that. So I think we kind of overestimated what the freshman talent was going to be on Michigan this season.
Go ahead, Ashton.
I actually do like the Illinois take, more so because Andre Carbello isn't playing right now. And I think when he actually comes back, you add in Alfonso Plummer with the way he's been playing, and now you only add you add another playmaker, to their perimeter. So, with Kofi Coburn playing that well underneath, you add in more playmakers on the perimeter. I think they're a scary team.
Well,
definitely watch.
The fact that Plummer, to your point, is going for 24 tonight, that's a really good sign for them, because I watched them live against Marquette, and it was Trent Frazier or bust in the backcourt. They didn't have enough back there, and Curbelo was not good down the stretch. They have to let Curbelo kind of ease his way back into what they're trying to do. I think he was trying to overdo it, because if you're Andre Curbelo, naturally you're saying sophomore year, people are saying I'm the breakout guy. People are saying I'm going to take this big leap. And oh, by the way, I got to be Ayo Dosunmu's heir. I got to be the guy that takes the throne. And Ashton, that's hearing all that over an off season and then actually taking it in November and running with it. It doesn't always go that easy when somebody's got tape on you from a freshman year.
Yeah, it's definitely tough, especially once you start to get scouted and teams really start to see your weaknesses and what makes you tick. For the most part, it's really tough. So somebody like Curbelo really needs to just slow down. I think offensively, he gets into trouble when he's just out of control in general. And then just being consistent with his jump shot, I think will open up lanes and gaps when you talk about just getting downhill and finishing around the basket and just making plays for others. So as long as he's under control, I think the sky's the limit. That's just been the issue so far this season, where he's just been consistently out of control, where he's been, turning the ball over a little bit more than usual.
And you know what else it is? I think they mentioned that he had a concussion early on in the season, and he's still dealing with some kind of a neck issue. So he might not have been 100% when all that was going on. And Steve, remember this, Ashton, Steve Prohm was on here talking about how what we kind of undervalued with Andre Curbelo this season was the impact of changing a role and what it's going to be like as the fact that you're now the focal point in that backcourt instead of having someone like an Ayo Dosunmu back there who everybody pay attention to every single second that he was on the floor. Someone like an Adam Miller, who was a game-changing talent as well. That's part of why I think bringing him off the bench when he comes back is probably what's going to be best for him, at least in the short term, right? Bottom line, that dude needs some confidence right now. You could see when he was he just didn't. It wasn't. I don't want to say he looked afraid or something like that. It's probably too strong, but he didn't have that confidence. And to me, half of the battle of succeeding on a basketball court, any walk of life, really, but half of the battle of succeeding in sports and on a basketball court is believing that you can do it and having the confidence that you can do it. And that looked lost.
Well, not only afraid, I wouldn't even. The way that I saw it from him was.
By the way, Fanta, just so you know that it's final in Mackey right now. Purdue won 77-70. So congrats, Purdue fans. You're going to be ranked number 1 on Monday. I'm happy for you all, but I just got to say, good teams win. Good teams win games. Great teams cover. Purdue did not cover, and I am officially right now putting Matt Painter on the hot seat. You're not a great team. You can't cover. Can't cover. You're not a great team.
We have a comment here from OLV77 #11 who says, Purdue is very good. This is to your take about Purdue, which I love this take. Purdue is very good, but far from unbeatable. 2 or 3 losses in the Big Ten for sure. Hey, buddy, if they only lose 2 games in the Big Ten, do you know how damn good that is? Do you know how damn good that is if they only lose 2 games in the Big Ten, my brother? Come on. Am I right? Ashton, am I preaching?
For sure. No, for sure. I think they can do it for sure. They have the talent.
You think that they could go They play 20 conference. You think they could go 18-2 in their league?
I'll say 3 or 4. I'll say 4 losses.
That's.
Overall,
Can I also make a point real quick? I'm sorry. I don't want to cut you off, but you mentioned how you expect them to lose 3 or 4 games, right? If we all think Purdue is the best team in college basketball, and let's say they go on the road and then they get a rematch against Iowa. I don't even know if they play Iowa again. Let's just pretend they play Iowa again, right? They go on the road, they play Iowa, and they lose that game. They lose that game by like 4 in a tough physical game, right? Can we all just agree that we're going to keep Purdue in the number one ranking? If we think that they're the best team in the country and they go on the road, lose a road game.
No, that's not how this goes.
That to me, that's a problem. Like, we don't, when we look at the NBA and we say, okay, we know that whoever, I don't even know, like the Warriors are the best team in the NBA, right? If they go to like Memphis on a back-to-back and they lose at Memphis, no one is sitting there and like, you know what? I don't think the Warriors can win the NBA title anymore. They're not the best team in the NBA. We all still think they're the best team in the NBA. Same thing with Purdue or Gonzaga or whoever it is. If you think that's the best team in the country and they lose a tough game, maybe one that they were an underdog in, like, you don't have to drop them in the rankings. You don't have to do it. If we expect them to go 17-3 or 16-4 in the Big Ten and they lose games that are very losable games on the road in league play, it's something you expect. You don't expect them to 20-0. So you're gonna ding them if they lose a game?
If
Gonzaga the best team in the country?
If Gonzaga loses at BYU, they shouldn't move in the poll?
If you think that they are the best team in the country, then they should not move in the poll. If I had Gonzaga number 1 and they lost, I would drop them because I think that Purdue is the best team in the country. Does that make sense?
It's the toughest part is going to be teams get better throughout the season because guys start understanding their roles. Some teams aren't healthy. Some teams are. Especially now, since so many transfers, I think the role playing and guys just understanding, where they're getting their shots, who's shooting the ball, who's the late shot clock playmaker. Usually that stuff is, figured out by the middle of the season. So that's, that's where the tough part on, like, Gonzaga can be playing really good in conference play, so can Duke. Purdue can really take another step forward as well. So you just never know going into, conference play and even, NCAA tournament.
Okay, we have another tweet that just came in from Oliver. Oliver says, yes, I want to see Purdue match up against tougher competition, though. Oliver, they went up against the North Carolina team that just cleaned the clocks of Michigan, and Purdue cleaned North Carolina's clock. Then they went up against Villanova, a Villanova team that has been right there. I mean, probably after that tier of Gonzaga, Purdue, Duke, and then I'd say Baylor, UCLA. Right after that, like, I'd put Villanova right there. They just haven't finished. But this week they face Florida State and Iowa. Oliver, they have more than enough body of work to suggest that they're the number 1 team in the country.
Like, what else does Oliver need them to do? That, like, he needs them to play Duke and Gonzaga only? Like, is that what is he asking for?
Well, that's probably what he would like to see.
I would have liked to see it too. We went over that. That dude should have been fired. Whoever did not give us
people. Oliver, go have a drink and then lay down and head to bed with hopefully your significant other. All right, I'm going to ask my stage manager here. Stage manager, can you hit the lights? Hit the lights, yeah. Hit the lights.
Oh boy. Oh boy.
Good evening.
Oh my God.
This is the official commencement of the coaching carousel in college basketball. We have lost our first. Not literally, but Mark Turgeon and Maryland, they part ways today. And this came as a shock in many ways. I was stunned by it. In fact, I almost spit out my coffee when I saw this. I still can't believe that this happened. But we'll do this every time that there's a coaching carousel move. I did not expect to pull this out until about March. Here we are. Ashton, what was your reaction? Where were you when you heard that Mark Turgeon and the Terrapins parted ways?
I just randomly saw the scroll on my Twitter feed. And my first initial thought was, did they even play 10 games yet? I just didn't understand the timing of it. But, I guess he's been on the hot seat for a couple years now. Overall, I don't really agree with the timing of firing coaches during the season.
Well, we don't know. Was he fired?
He was not.
He was not fired.
Okay, so mutually.
Here's the thing, Ashton. He more or less just like quit on the situation. It was more, he was like, I can't deal with this. The stress of like the fans hating me and me getting booed and no one wanting me to be here. I think was more of something where he's like, yeah, you know what? Fucking I'm done. Than it was the school just firing him. Now, he probably would have gotten fired in the offseason, but he didn't go after it with he didn't want to stay more. That was the end of the story here. And maybe it would have been different if he had a team that he believed in. I don't think that he believes in this team all this much. I think that he tried to get other jobs this offseason. So it wasn't like a fire. Like this was Mark. I think that this was more Mark Turgeon's decision than it was Maryland's decision.
Yeah, I think so too. This was Mark Turgeon's decision. The fact is, the standard of Maryland basketball is more than what Mark Turgeon has been delivering for the Terrapins. And I think that the pressure, the anxiety, at a certain point, you get into that quality of life and that stress that can just weigh you down. Do I like the idea of leaving during a season in which it's early December? I don't like that. I mean, I'll say it right now. Like I'm not a fan of that because you owe it to your kids to continue on. But we don't know what's going on inside of his home. We don't know what's going on, for him as a person. So as much as like, I didn't like that at surface value, if your heart's not in it, you don't want to show up to the office and be in a disengaged state. So for Maryland, now they turn to Danny Manning here in the interim role. But let's look beyond here this year at what comes to mind with some of the candidates for this job. Where does Maryland go? And my biggest thing is, this is a good job in college basketball, a very good job in college basketball. Maryland has the pick of the litter here, and they're out in front of this, and they need to make the right hire. This is a pivotal moment for Maryland basketball. There's a dynamic here, Rob. Sexy name, coaching, right? Like, rarely do you always get both. What are your thoughts here as Maryland initiates the search?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts. The first is that I think it's important to point out that Maryland, like Georgetown, are both probably like top 20-ish jobs in college basketball, right? I mean, you got the money, the fan base, the recruiting ground. Like the DMV area is just absolutely loaded with talent. But they're really, how many coaches at those schools have actually won at the levels that those fan bases expect consistently? And the answer is probably just like Gary Williams and John Thompson, right? Like Lefty Driesell had his moments. Mark Turgeon had a couple of good teams. JT3 had a team that made the Final Four. They competed for the Big East for a while, but it didn't end up all that well, right? So it's there. I wonder if I think that those fan bases should have very high expectations for what their programs should be, given what that school is, where it's located, the money that they have, the everything that goes into like having it be what should be a good job. But I also think it's worth pointing out that it's not a surefire thing that you're going to have a ton of success at those programs. I think that's worth pointing out. So there's a level of expectation there that you have to know is going to be there when you accept that job. Meaning that if you're 4 years in and you're still working to try to find a way to be better than 20-10, there's going to be people that are calling you on it. There's going to be columnists, and there's going to be TV stations, and there's going to be bloggers, and there's going to be fans, and there's going to be people that are out there like, yeah, you know what, this guy isn't getting it done, because Mark Turgeon at the end of the day made 6 of the last 7 NCAA tournaments.
Right.
He want to share the Big Ten. I think they want to share the Big Ten in the COVID year, right? In 2020? They want to share the Big Ten title.
Yeah, they did. And kind of speaking to that point, what about the idea that they're not in the right league?
Well, they're not. I mean, they should be in the ACC. There's no, like, that's not even a question. They absolutely should be in the ACC. In terms of who I think that they should go after,
sure,
I would love to see them. I would love to see them go try to get a guy like a Bruce Pearl or a guy like a Nate Oates.
Okay.
I think Bruce could handle the pressure as well as anybody. And I think that he would just, that fan base would love him and adore him. I think that he would be able to get the talent that you need to be able to get. And I think that he would play a style that would completely turn the Big Ten on its head. Our guy, Terrence Oglesby, made this point today in a text with us today, Fanta. Like, that kind of style, Bruce Pearl and to a point, Nate Oates, would completely change the way that the Big Ten needs to be played. I think Bruce would be a home run hire. I don't know if you could hire him right now based off of everything that has happened at Auburn since he's been there and everything that happened with Tennessee, right? I don't know if you can go get him. Same thing with Sean Miller. I think Sean Miller, they almost hired Sean Miller a couple of years ago. I don't know if you can go out and actually hire Sean right now. Like, that's something that you have to decide. I mean, he's probably the best coach that's available, right? Is there anyone that you can go hire right now that has had more success as a basketball coach than Sean Miller? But can you hire a guy that might end up getting a show cause? Like, I don't know. Like, I think you have to wait for that to play out. That's a tough, if you can hire Sean Miller and he wants the job, like, I mean, you kind of got to go get that one, right? Beyond that, like, I think it gets a little bit more murky. What do you think? Where are you at on this, Ashton? If you're right now the Maryland AD, who are you going after?
So I almost want to ask you guys if I'm crazy. And the only reason why I say this is, well, one of the guys, I think Kevin Willard will be a really good hire. I think what he's doing at Seton Hall is big time. It's a really tough job, I think, in the Big East. Being in Jersey, a lot of talent, but overall, without the football, I think it affects recruiting a bit.
Yeah.
So tell me if I'm crazy, if Juan Dixon, is he too low on the totem pole? And the only reason why I ask is I see a lot of these schools hiring their own, quote unquote. And obviously he's won a national championship, all-time leading scorer. He's been on staff before. But is that kind of a stretch?
The only problem I have with going and hiring Juan Dixon right now, do you know what his record is right now this season? You know what Coppin's record is?
They're
1-11. I totally get the idea of hiring one of your own, but if you can't win at Coppin State, that's going to be a tough sell. It's the same thing. Like, another guy that we talked about this earlier with Goodman, another guy that I think kind of falls in a similar umbrella is Kim English, right? Guy that is, I think, incredibly sharp. Someone that I think is going to be a very, very, very good coach down the road. His coaching career is like 9 games right now. Part of the reason why Turgeon got fired is because Kimmy went in there and kicked Maryland's ass. But can you hire a guy because they kicked your ass once when he still hasn't even, like, he's never coached a league game as a head coach? That's just, I don't know if you could do it. That's a tough ask, right?
Oh, very tough ask. Now I think Kim is, a budding star for sure. It may be tough, initially for him to give him that job, but I think somebody like Kevin Willard, honestly, wouldn't be a bad move, only because he's doing it right now at Seton Hall. He kind of has the landscape, being in, Jersey, New York, recruiting that area, but that's not too far away from the Maryland area as well. So, I know I think he was in the running a few years ago for the Pitt job. And he's just been a hot name the last few years in certain.
He's getting it done at Seton Hall, right? And look, you're a Jersey guy, Ashton. You know what that Seton Hall program is like. Fanta is a Seton Hall alum. Like that is not the easiest job in the world to get going. Like you're recruiting guys to Newark, right? It's not. It's you're not recruiting someone to LA. And I think the job that he's done is a little bit underrated. What I will say is this, and I'm very curious your opinion on this, Fanta, because I know that you're close with Willard, and I know that you're vested in this Seton Hall basketball program. Kevin hasn't done anything at Seton Hall that is above and beyond what Mark Turgeon accomplished at Maryland. And if the issue with your hire was that you didn't have a guy that could get you to better than like 21-10, that could get you out of the second round of the tournament, that could be competing for conference titles. Like, is that? I just worry that you're gonna have kind of an issue with the fan base saying, "Well, we wanted a home run hire. This guy was good, but is he going to take us to that next level?" You know, does that make sense? What I'm asking?
Well, it makes sense. Mark Turgeon has 3 times the amount of resources that Kevin possesses at Seton Hall. Seton Hall does not have a standard practice facility. They practice in an auxiliary gym in a basement of a field house. Here's the thing with Kevin, just to get into the weeds a little bit on his numbers. Seton Hall's finished at 500 or above in the Big East in each of the last 6 seasons. They've made the NCAA tournament in 4 of the last 5 years. In terms of consistency, the program has never been this consistent in its 115-year history of existence. He's 2 wins shy of PJ Carlesimo on the all-time winningest coaches at the university. And he's the 11th winningest coach in the history of the Big East Conference. He's just outside the top 10 of winningest Big East coaches in the history of the league. The winningest being, do you know who the winningest is?
That would be Boeheim. It's got to be Boeheim.
That would be James Arthur Boeheim. So Kevin Willard is right there. Here's the thing. At Seton Hall University, he has done as good of a job as they could have asked for and more. Unfortunately for Kevin, he caught some really bad luck because of COVID in terms of the programs that it severely impacted. When you think about ceiling, Ashton and Rob, that Seton Hall team with Miles Powell and with.
Are you allowed to mention that name in conjunction with Seton Hall still?
No, with Quincy McKnight, with Miles Cale, with Jared. Look, with that team was so ready for an NCAA tournament run. It felt like destiny that they would go on a run. That was unfortunate for them. I think that what you're saying, if you're Maryland, in this search is that you fully believe that Kevin Willard, who is 46 years of age, he's fairly young.
Yeah, 46 is young for basketball.
He's young.
20 years in front of him.
Yeah, he's got a lot of years of coaching. You're saying that because of the resources pumping up. Also, I would say this, guys, ironically enough, Seton Hall, Maryland had a home and home. And Kevin Willard goes down to College Park the first year of it, and Seton Hall beats Maryland like a drum. The next year, do you remember this game at all, Dauster? Maryland comes to Seton Hall. Seton Hall does not have McKnight. Or, excuse me, they don't have Miles Powell.
The man that will not be mentioned in conjunction with Seton Hall.
They were without their star players. They were without Sandro Mamukelashvili at the time. They were without Powell. They're without all these players. Seton Hall wins the game in a rock fight because McKnight just refuses to lose, and Willard, again, beats Turgeon. So if you're Maryland, one of your top options is actually staring back at you, because if you're that administration, you watched a home and home against this Seton Hall program. If I'm a Maryland fan, I sit here and I see that home and home and I say, Maryland should be winning at least a game, if not both games. We are Maryland. They are Seton Hall. That's not the case here. and Seton Hall's consistency level. And remember what Kevin inherited. I mean, Bobby Gonzalez ran that program into a dark spot. Kevin has done a very good job at a job that is not easy. And he has put the program in so much better hands as a result of the kids that he's brought in, as a result of he schedules his ass off. He schedules his ass off. I mean, they're going to play. They already played Michigan. They went down to Florida. They played Ohio State. They got beat at the buzzer. They played Cal. That Cal team ends up not being very good. But you're going to play Texas next week. Even the teams that you schedule from a mid-major standpoint, Yale and Iona, this guy really does schedule hard and believes in the scheduling concept. I think that for Maryland, and Kevin has been able to recruit the DMV. He's been able to recruit that area well. So look, I mean, you're not going to hear me. I think Kevin's done a very, very good job and is deserving of a job like this. I don't know what the Maryland board is sitting in that room thinking about.
Honestly, right now they're not thinking anything other than like, what the hell are we going to do? Because this was like this was mostly like I said, a Turgeon thing. One thing I want to ask you, Ashton, because I'm pretty sure you played against him. As we're doing this, a text that I just got was John Beeline to Maryland. What do you think about that, Ashton? Do you think that's a good fit? Do you think that could work?
Certainly,
ball coach.
Certainly good pedigree. I don't think I didn't play against them, but obviously, the Beeline name, I think that's big time. I mean, how old is he right now is the question.
Very.
Yeah, so
he's that age where the numbers don't really matter. You just kind of say, yeah, he's old.
So if he gets the job, he has to hire a big time staff. Because being in that Maryland area, I think recruiting is so crucial. You have to, just really be out there, getting these big time recruits. But that's not a bad name. I love, the way he, builds a culture. Obviously, like offensive guru, well proven legend for the most part. So that wouldn't be a bad move. I just would monitor his hiring, if anything, if I'm Maryland.
Yeah, I don't know if you can convince him to do that. And it's also, there's already so much drama, I guess maybe the word, so many politics involved with recruiting that area. There's a reason why like one DeMatha kid has gone to Maryland in like the last 20 years. I think it's our Travis Garrison who hosts our Maryland pod. It's just not, there's that whole thing with Hunter Dickinson was not recruited by Maryland. Like there's.
Can I ask this question? Why would Nate Oates leave Alabama for Maryland?
Because you're going to a place that is a basketball school first and foremost, and you don't have to be in the shadow of Nick Saban. You don't have to worry about people only paying attention when you get to the NCAA tournament because college football season is going to go on until the middle of January. And you can kind of be the star. You also, he's a guy, he's from Michigan and coached at Buffalo. The first time I think he ever went past the Mason-Dixon line was when he went down on his job interview at Alabama. That's a joke. I don't know if that's true, but it would be coming back closer to home for him. He'd be playing in the Big Ten. He's a Big Ten guy. He kind of grew up in that area. So that's what the appeal would be. Now, the thing about Alabama is he's had so much success. They could probably just write him a blank check and say, yeah, put whatever number you want on there. That's your salary now. And I don't think that Maryland is going to be able to match that. And there was a point that someone made. I think Goodman made it on our stream earlier today where he said that Maryland will play non-conference games that are sold out. Maryland's non-conference games have not been sold out this season, but a lot of that is due to the fact that there's a lot of fan apathy with the fact that Mark Turgeon was still there. That arena, it was called the Xfinity Center when I lived in DC. I don't know if it's still called the Xfinity Center, but that place, I am telling you, is a top 10 venue in college basketball when it's sold out. It is loud. It is insane. Maryland fans are vulgar as hell. They're out of their minds. They're like NC State fans. If you gave NC State fans a Four Loko, like every single person in the crowd a Four Loko before the game, It's wild in there. It's an awesome environment to watch a basketball game.
No, I think so as well. My younger brother, Sterling, actually committed to Maryland initially when Gary Williams was there. So I had the opportunity to, go to some games, obviously years ago. But overall, I think big time job, big time atmosphere. The fan base, they really support basketball. Somebody like Nate Oates, I definitely would look at the job. I agree with you, Rob. I think he's a Big Ten kind of coach. I also just think he fits the bill when in terms of just being the face of Maryland basketball. When you look at Nate Oates and his personality, but just being in that Maryland DC area, you can't really beat it in terms of basketball. And they need a big time coach, though. I think that you need a big time name as well, just to really get those recruits.
Here's the thing, and then we can move on to the Kansas St. John's game after this. I'll wrap it with this. It is now December 3rd, right? Yep. You basically have 4 months to do all of the due diligence that you need to see if you can make any of these home run hires, if any of them are interested. You have 4 months to poke around and see if Sean Miller would actually take a job like this, or you could actually hire him, right? You have 4 months to kind of put out feelers and see if Nate Oates would be interested, to see if the boosters and the people within the university would be okay of going out and getting somebody like a Bruce Pearl. For my money, like if everything else, all things equal, nothing else mattered, and it was a blank slate, I think Bruce Pearl would be the first guy that I would go after if I was Maryland. I mean, this dude's a hell of a coach. He can recruit. He's gonna the style that he plays would completely change the way that Big Ten basketball is situated. I mean, I think the world of Bruce as a coach. I don't know if you can actually make that hire if you are Maryland, if that makes sense.
All right, we got about 5 minutes left to go in this show. Ashton, Kansas beat St. John's by 20 in Elmont, New York tonight at UBS Arena. David McCormick looked like the David McCormick we saw as last year, went on 15 and 13 in this game. Christian Braun puts up a 30-burger. Ochai Agbaji looked great as well. And Kansas dominates St. John's on a night that St. John's really needed. Ashton, your biggest takeaway from Kansas's drubbing of the Red Storm?
So anytime Christian Braun is playing at that level, if he can play at that level consistently, obviously 30 points is a stretch, every game. But if he's just playing with that type of confidence, really attacking the basket, making plays with Ochai Agbaji and David McCormick, I think this is easily one of the top 5, top 10 teams in the country, without question. When you talk about Christian really being a playmaker, it takes a lot of pressure off of Agbaji. And I think with Bill Self at the helm, the sky's the limit for this Kansas team.
Rob?
St. John's is very, very bad, especially on the defensive end of the floor. Like, for a team that is supposed to pride themselves on being someone that forces turnovers and impacts the game defensively, and they got Mike Anderson and on all of this, there were so many situations where it was just like Christian Braun was just driving a lane. There was nobody there. Like, there was one play in the second half, right, where he's just kind of, someone's coming up, it looks like he's going to set a high ball screen. It doesn't actually set the ball screen. And the way that St. John's moved their defense, they just opened up a wide open lane, and Christian Braun takes 2 dribbles and dunks on 2 people, because St. John's was just like, here, go ahead, go to the basket. That happened 4 different times. Like, if you're at St. John's, you're playing at home. This is a game that you have to win to be able to have a chance to get in the NCAA tournament. Like, they put themselves really in a bad spot with their scheduling. The fact that they kind of, they didn't win at Indiana, and then they got blown out by Kansas. You cannot give up 95 points in that gym, in that setting, playing on Long Island. That's just, you can't do it. That's that's horrible. They can't guard. I'm completely off St. John's. Like, that was a very disappointing performance, I think.
And typically, Mike Anderson's teams play really hard. They get in the passing lanes. They push the pace. Overall, I like their talent. I actually like the talent. Joel Soriano is a really good transfer, Montez Mathis from Rutgers. And then you keep in Posh Alexander and Julian Champagnie. I thought this really exposed them tonight. Mainly their turnovers. I thought offensively they got really out of control, and Kansas just took advantage of it on their offensive end as well. So they got a lot of work to do for sure. But I think they can overall just they can progress for sure just because of their talent level, and ultimately the pace of play I think will be tough for teams towards the middle of the Big East season.
They got big boy is what happened.
Yep.
It's like St. John's. You can go out there and you can compete with some of the teams in the Big East, and you can compete with some of these teams that kind of in your area. But then when you start playing these real teams that actually have a chance to do something this season, this is what happened. Like, you got big boy. I think it's really just as simple as that, Fanta.
Yeah, they did. They got exposed tonight. They're a team that has underperformed, and this was a huge reality check for them. The fact is, St. John's brought in 7 transfers in the offseason, and you would have thought that this was the first game they had played together. But the fact also is that the scheduling here that was done left them ill-prepared for this level of basketball tonight. Kansas looked like a team that had been playing high-level competition. St. John's had one game against Indiana. They fell in that game. But this was a disappointing performance by the Red Storm on a night where they really need to put it together. I think that the same thing holds true. They got outclassed on the interior. David McCormick was great in this game, but another night where St. John's just doesn't have the matchups inside. They didn't match up. Like, Joel Soriano wasn't good enough against David McCormick. And then they ran into turnover problems in this game. As much as you're trying to play 40 minutes of hell, it didn't look like that tonight. They didn't have a defensive answer for Kansas. You're exactly right, Rob. St. John's defensively, they came off like a team that just doesn't have a whole lot of organization tonight. They came off like a team that is not living up to the expectations we gave them. So a disappointing loss for the Red Storm. I expected more from this basketball team. I think Julian Champagnie's a really good player, but this team has a lot of unknowns right now, many more unknowns than knowns. And the problem is they don't have any other resume opportunities until Big East play begins. And you said they'll be able to beat Big East competition. Guess what? This league is better than we thought it would be. I don't know how successful they're going to be against this conference this season if they don't get some of their stuff together, because they could not defend tonight. And I think the formula against them again is feed the post, feed the post. Kansas did that. Kansas has the best player on the floor in this game. They're going to have that more times than not with Agbaji. I think for Kansas, Christian Braun has been fantastic. Christian Braun is playing at such a high level right now. That gives Kansas a different dimension. The Kansas team that I saw on opening night of the season has gotten even better since then. And I think the loss to Dayton could be a good thing for this team. Jayhawks look like a team that was battle-tested tonight. Yep. This is why you got a schedule in college basketball. St. John's did not look ready for this game, and they got exposed this evening, and they're going to have a fight here to work their way back ahead of conference play. They're going to open up league play against Seton Hall. Seton Hall's seen every kind of team. They've seen every kind of team. St. John's has not. And so that it's really hard for the Red Storm now because they don't have any resume wins. They're not going to get one in non-conference play. They're going to have to win probably 11 conference games to have a chance at making the big dance. And that's going to be hard in a Big East conference that looks like it's a lot deeper than we actually thought it would be.
You know what the only thing that was more disappointing tonight than St. John's was?
What's that?
The Purdue Boilermakers blowing that 19-point lead, melting away that cover. I told you, man. Good teams win. Great teams cover. Purdue, not a great team. Robbie Hummel can kiss my ass.
That does it for us on After Dark. For Ashton Gibbs and Rob Dauster, I'm John Fanta. We'll talk to you tomorrow on a busy Saturday of basketball and football. Follow the Field of 12 too.